I have a new microphone, as you can probably tell. No, a lot of new things. It's been a while since I recorded a screencast. One of the reasons is I moved house. I have been quite busy, but it's now nearly a year actually since I moved house, so there's no excuse anymore. And a few things have changed. New location, as you can see, new microphone, mostly because I got a different desk now, and the old microphone, I couldn't mount it on the old desk, and so I got rid of it and got a different microphone. And my computer's effectively new. It's a 3-year-old computer now, but it died, and so it needed a new logic board, which meant I lost all of my data. I did restore from a backup, but things are still a bit weird. So if something doesn't work on this screencast, it's because the computer is still requiring a little bit of configuration to get it to behave nicely. So what's going to be the topic? I wanted to talk about AI, partly because nobody else is. Partly because I know I did do a screencast that touched on AI a few years ago, about 2.5 years ago, probably in 2023. And since then, a huge amount of stuff has changed. And so I just wanted to give you a flavor of the kind of things I've been doing lately with AI, just to kind of update. I wouldn't want people looking at that one and thinking that that's what I'm doing nowadays. So just to kind of loop back there and remind you what I was doing, I was using and still do a plugin called Shellbot, which is basically a chatbot inside of Vim. And so you can say, tell me about your model. You can ask it questions and it will stream a response back to you. And while it's streaming, you can still do stuff. Like you can type over here, you can edit buffers. But it is not an agent, so it can't modify the file system. It can't read your code. If you want it to answer questions about your code, you have to copy the code into the chat. If you want it to write code for you, you have to copy the code out of the chat and into the place where you want to execute it. So it is good sometimes still if you're in Neovim and want to quickly ask it a question, but it's nothing like a coding agent. And because it's nothing like a coding agent, when I talked about it a couple of years ago, I was using it for pretty trivial use cases. And to be fair, I mean, I think that's really what it was good for back then, because the models have improved a lot. And back then, I didn't really trust them very much for anything but the most banal things. But the world is different now. Agents are still not trustworthy, but we do have agents. And it's kind of crazy to think about it that Claude code didn't exist back then. It's only it's something like a year old, maybe roughly a year. I can't remember exactly when it came out, but it's super new. And we don't just have Claude, like all of the major vendors have coding agents, and there are open source ones like Pi, which you can see in the bottom pane here. And so you can still have a chat with these guys, just like I was with Shellbot. But typically, like in any given day, I'm going to be using a coding agent to do most of the manipulation of the text in the Vim buffer. So, and this is really weird to me. I used to spend the whole life of this channel really like perfecting the art of editing text with Neovim, finding ways to do it more efficiently and equip Vim with more power. And nowadays, I do write text in Vim, but like most of the manipulation of code, I just ask the model to do it. And not only that, I'm not even typing some of the time. So I can ask questions using speech to text. I'm using a tool called Handy for that. And you can select a bunch of different models. The one I'm using right now is Parakeet. It's described as fast and accurate, an open source model. And it's true, it is incredibly fast. So basically, as fast as I can talk, this thing is going to produce almost a flawless transcription. Not so good for writing code. So for example, if I wanted to write something like on the left, like if open parentheses, error, instance of error with metadata, like it's not going to do a very good job of that. It doesn't know about camel case. If I try to use punctuation, it's probably going to use the word. Like, so if I say comma, it's probably going to put the word comma instead of an actual comma. Now you can configure it to do processing, basically inferring what you probably wanted based on the literal text that it transcribes. but for the most part, I think it's better for just giving English instructions or instructions in other languages too, but not programming languages. So as I was saying, it is a little bit weird, for the purpose of this channel to not be thinking so much anymore about how to make Neovim do stuff and more to be thinking about how to get the agent to make Neovim do stuff. So I will demo a couple of things actually in that respect today. So let's talk about agents just briefly. Claude is the one I've been using the most. It is kind of buggy and the issue tracker is just flooded with like garbage issues, which I'm pretty sure they don't read and they get closed before they're actioned. And it does feel a little bit unreliable. And they're constantly changing their mind about how it should be configured. And so, I did spend a fair bit of time configuring Claude code because I knew the models were already good enough that if something better came along, I could just point a new model or from a different provider or a new harness. I could point it at my Claude custom skills and tools and plug in marketplaces and just say, port all this for use with this new tool. So vendor lock-in is not actually a concern, even though you are, constructing this edifice around Claude code. And so as a case in point, like when Pi came out, I've been using that for a while. It's been very trivial, easy to adapt my Claude skills to work with Pi. Basically making sure that they don't have any Claudeisms in them and they're generic. And anything that was a little more like concrete than that is probably better expressed as a Pi extension. And Pi is very good at writing its own extensions because it has its own documentation. So tell me what built-in tools you have. So it knows it knows how to look at its own source, how to look at its own markdown documentation that comes with the source, and ask questions like this. Whereas Claude won't do quite as well at that. So I'm going to use speech to text here, like I said, or at least I think I said. What are the built-in tools that you come with? And it'll guess. Sometimes it'll be right. Sometimes it'll try to search the web, and it's slow. Like one of the reasons it's slow is because its system prompt is huge. If you look at the system prompt of Pi, it's about 1 page long or less, and it has far fewer tools. So its context is much leaner, and it effectively runs in YOLO mode all the time. So it doesn't have permission prompts. It doesn't have planning mode. It doesn't have subagents. It doesn't have to-do lists. It doesn't have MCP support. All it has is those 4 tools that it came with: read, bash, edit, and write. Web search, which is one that I added. But pretty easy to write your own or have Pi write them for you. And skills. So that tends to make it faster. It is a little bit scary, the fact that it runs in YOLO mode. You can, of course, write an extension that makes it not YOLO mode. But my preferred solution is actually to run it in a VM. Now, there are probably on the order of 100 or more Sandbox solutions for running agents in restricted environments, and they use different technologies. Some of them use like Docker containers, some of them use actual VMs, some of them use like OS level primitives. Like on macOS, there's a thing called seatbelt, which can be used to restrict the privileges of a process, such as what files it can open, what kind of network connections it can make, etc. Of all of those, VMs seem to me to be the most rigorous form of isolation, so that's what I've been experimenting with. I'm using concretely a tool called Tart, and you can see some VMs here, and some bash scripts for managing the VMs. And so this one here, Winston Base, that is basically just an Ubuntu VM with my .files bootstrapped on it. And I manage that. I've got this bin VM script in my .files that has a number of commands for cloning the base Ubuntu image and creating the base Winston image with my .files in it, destroying it, updating it, pushing it, pulling it, starting it, stopping it, etc. And then I've got an SB script, which is the one I run in specific projects. That will create a VM based on the base VM. It'll inject the repo in there. And in that VM, there's no GPG key, so it can't sign commits. There's no SSH key, so it can't push to GitHub. It does have access to the API keys for the coding agent, and that's not awesome, but it's kind of hard to really come up with a good solution for it not having access to those because, for example, I mean, you might want to run a proxy outside the host that the agent could route its requests through so that the agent never actually needed to see the key. But even if the agent didn't see the key, it's all too easy for the key to kind of leak into the context that gets sent to the server, the provider anyway. So it's going to go over the wire. Whether it be encrypted or not is cold comfort. So for now, at least, it feels like setting the API keys in the environment and exposing that environment in the VM is the simplest path of least resistance. And, in that security convenience trade-off, it's adequate. You can always rotate API keys and, keep your eye on them. Keep your eye on your billing page, to see if your credits get exhausted or whatever. So yeah, that's what I'm doing with those. And so just to give an example of that, I think I have, I've got a Sandbox running for this repo right now. This is my .files repo that I'm in. I could connect to it here, and I will. Now I'm in this admin Ubuntu box. And if I run Claude in here, you'll see that it's running with bypass permission zone on. So it's running in dangerously skip permissions. Because in here it can do like anything at once, and it's not going to do any harm because the only thing it can write to is the VM. Now I know it is possible in theory for the agent to somehow break out of the VM. I'm not too worried about it. I don't think the agent is actively malicious. I'm more concerned with accidental collateral damage that the agent might do just because it's trying to achieve a goal that I gave it. And so I think in typical usage, it's not going to succeed in breaking out of the VM, and it's not even going to try. And so that's why I'm happy to run it in like YOLO mode in there. Normally though, I wouldn't be in tmux on my machine SSHing to the Sandbox. What I would actually do is create a completely new pane. I'm going to change to my .files repo here. And I'm going to SSH in again, and then I'm going to open a new tmux pane because, when I'm working in the context of the VM, I want to be able to do things like split panes and have the new split or the new pane be in the VM. Whereas here, like on the left here, I'm going to just actually, no, what am I going to do? I'm going to close this. I'm going to close this. Just say I'm looking at this, this VM here, this Ubuntu VM, and I split. The split on the right is a terminal on my host laptop. And that's usually not what I want. What I usually want is, as I said, to be able to do a split when I'm looking at a VM pane and have a new pane pop up that's also on the VM. And so we've got our agents in here, and I thought it might be fun just to demonstrate a couple of things. One is that I can easily copy text and have it appear in the host clipboard. So if I, for example, I use a tool called Clipper, which is something I wrote. It's just a little Go server that runs on the Mac and is exposed wherever I want to go via a reverse port forward. Basically, that means I can echo something into Clipper. That's what that C8. What I just did then is the equivalent of writing. Oh my God, why can I not type? Because my hands are not on the place where I thought they were. I'm basically piping this into Clip, which is a little tool on the other side that's going to forward the clipboard contents back through the reverse port forward into the clipboard on the Mac. So if I hit the shortcut, you can see that it wound up there. And that's obviously a contrived example, but just say I was in Vim and I was looking at a file and I wanted to copy a line, I can yank it, and that will have gone back through the reverse port forward, and now it's in my macOS clipboard. And like if I go to another pane, I can now paste that in. It's true you could also do this with tmux copy mode, but like if tmux is running in the VM, having it in copy mode in the VM doesn't help you get it into another tmux instance running on the host. So that is why I use Clipper. And I recently extended Clipper to also be able to publish notifications. So for example, if I tell this thing to sleep for a couple of seconds, it should then send a notification saying, or maybe it won't because I didn't ask it to do anything. Tell me about the weather in Madrid. Let's see if it notifies me that it's waiting for my input once it's finished. So first of all, I guess another thing to comment there is you might have seen that it used the web search extension. I'm a Kagi customer, so Kagi is a paid search engine, very kind of like privacy respecting. And I think there might be a bug here because I should have seen a notification. I didn't. But anyway, the point is they have a private beta of API-based search. You can just email them and ask to be let into the private beta. It's not free. You pay a certain fee per API call, but it's quite reasonable. And so it's really good to provide the model with a kind of structured way of doing search queries. So it doesn't have to use curl. It can just hit the endpoint, get JSON back, and get basically a structured response to its query. I do know that the providers, some of them at least, offer web search like on the server side. So you can issue a query. The LLM on the server side, in the provider's infrastructure, will decide that it wants to do like a web search tool call, and it will do it locally on their servers, thus avoiding a round trip where like your laptop's doing a query and then it's serializing that, and then it gets sent to the server, and the server tokenizes, and then they do all this work. No, it would be quicker for them to just do it all on the server for you, but I actually like doing it locally because with a tool like Pi that kind of streams what it's thinking all the time, it doesn't hide anything from you. It's good to see what the search results are as they go by. But as I said, I would have expected Clipper address. I would have expected this to work. Let's try here locally. Okay, so there's something wrong with Clipper. Doesn't seem to be running, and also brew services doesn't do what I think. Is it running? It is running and loaded, but something's wrong with it. I mean, I should have known it was working, because before when I did echo by or echo high, it did wind up in the clipboard. So it is running, but what version is running? Is it an old version? That would be useful if I gave it the full name of what I wanted to. Yeah, that's a new version. So why is that not working? There is a log somewhere. So let's go. There we go. Or I didn't mean to do that. Let's do this again. Title iMessage test. I know what it is, or at least I think I know. I think Terminal Notifier doesn't have permission to show notifications. It does though. Let's try turning it on. Let's try it again. Let's try just Terminal Notifier. Terminal Notifier isn't working. Well, it would be a great demo if it was. And why isn't it working? Is it appearing on the wrong screen? I've got another screen here on the side. No, it's not appearing on any screen. Okay. Let's search for Terminal Notifier. It's going to be some like permission related thing here. Come on here, nobody, don't let me down. Not playing sound, adding notification, removing. So this all seems I'm not seeing any errors here, but the trouble is there's too many messages. I mean, look how much it logged in just like due to a single message. So around, yeah, I mean, it started at 49 seconds past the hour. There's too much here for me to quickly read it while I'm doing a screencast. Hit the server, blah, 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 invalidating assertion, blah, blah, blah. Like I've seen problems with this before. And there was something in the log that revealed to me what the problem was. And it was something like not showing a notification because I don't have a permission to show it. And that's why I immediately suspected that it wasn't allowed. But notification, am I in do not disturb mode or something? I'm not in do not disturb mode. I could try turning it off and on again. As you know, that's the best way. Let's try that again. Still not getting any notifications. So this is a really shit demo. Like, it's basically when the clanker finishes and wants your attention, it sends a notification and you're supposed to realize, oh, I should go back to my terminal now and see what it wants. but I cannot see here. What the fuck is wrong with this thing? I could ask the clanker for help, but I mean, I can hear my dog licking the floor, so I'm just gonna ask her to go to bed. Bingo! Come here. Come here. And go to your bed. I have a neurotic dog that licks the floor continuously, like almost all the time whenever she's nervous. And she's nervous because I'm recording a screencast, so yeah. Breakthrough is not allowed for global settings with event deal. I wonder if DND mutable a client. See, there's DND event. I am seeing DND be mentioned here. Why is there so mute? Whoop! Did you see that? Muted by display state, display shared. Oh. So it doesn't display notifications when I'm doing a screencast. That is nuts. It makes it difficult to actually demonstrate the feature. You just have to trust me. I don't know if there's a way to turn it off. Let's have a look. And of course, there's no man page for it. Okay, optional titles and activate. Execute command, ignore DND. I wonder if this will work. That did not work. Son of a bitch. Okay, so I can't demonstrate this. You're just gonna have to trust me that it actually works. Okay, well, there is maybe another thing that I can demonstrate, which I think is pretty cool. So that would be, let me get out of the sandbox. I'm going to use text-to-speech. Tell me which files changed in the last commit. And, obviously normal, like this is a contrived demonstration because if I want to know what files changed in the last commit, I'm going to run get what changed. But because I want the clanker to show me a file path, I asked it what files changed. And what I've got set up is the ability to click these links and have them open in Neovim. So I'm not sure why that didn't work. Actually, let's have a look. Kitty, open actions comp. Okay, so basically with Kitty, you can tell it, there's my dog again. You can tell it what you want it to do when you click on a link, when you click on a URL in the terminal output. And so I've got it, actually, so no Kitty window. This seems stale. This is out of date. That's not what I wanted it to do. Interesting. I am seriously confused about why that is showing the old version. And it's only ever been changed once. That sucks. That is super weird. Did I only set this up on another machine? Just bear with me a sec. I'm using my personal laptop now. And I also have my dot files on my work machine, and I'm wondering if I only edited them on my work machine and didn't push them. That would be fun, wouldn't it? 5 hours later. So it's like, maybe I had it locally and never committed it or something. Let's check here. No. It's also got the old version. This is nuts. Like, where was it? Okay, so I guess I lost it. C, let's go cd show. C commit blah in. This suggests a change should have been made to config kitty open actions conf. But I see no such change. I suspect it was blown away, never committed. Is there any way to recover, to look in the JJ or Git history to see if we can find a trace of it? I don't think there is, because I just looked. Failing that, can we reconstruct the change? So I can't look in the sandbox on the work machine because apparently the DHCP pool on macOS is really unreliable, and every now and again it just like runs out of IPs, and the pool is tiny, and you have to basically restart the daemon that's responsible for handing them out and blow away the state. I can't be bothered doing that right now. Change wasn't lost, it just never made it into a name JJ commit. God bless JJ. Let's see if it has the content. It has the content. All four are reachable from Git, not from any JJ change. They're the kind of snapshot JJ writes on every working copy mutation. The earliest predates the Shannon commit by 8 minutes, which lines up with developing the kitty side first, then writing the Shannon side, then snapshot again. The latter three are subsequent edits, reverts on the same. The difference all four. Well, God bless you. A couple of follow-ups you may want to do yourself if you don't touch them. You can deploy it. I don't have to deploy it because it's sim linked. So kitty open actions conf, it's there. Describe the change with JJ. Let's have a look here. Okay, JJ, whoops. JJ commit this. Why did I say JJ commit this? It's because I know I'm being watched and it makes me nervous. Okay, so anyway, this has now been recording for I have no idea how long, too long. But with this change, I should be able to demonstrate what I wanted to demonstrate before, which is that you can click on links in Pi and they will open in Vim, which is great. It's creating a commit message. One thing I do notice about the commit messages that the clanker makes is they're so freaking verbose. And I've tried to tell it to be concise, but it basically just explains everything in minute detail. Let's have a look here. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Where was I? I think I just had an empty window. It made a commit. Do you want a sanity check? I find it easy to read the message here. Well, I'm glad it was on this machine. I mean, it might have been on the other machine too, but like, eh. Okay, the nice thing is I don't have to reload Kitty because it seems to evaluate this file dynamically every time you click on a link. So I don't know what that link is. That's a URL, I guess. Now, show me which files have changed in the last 2 commits. We will have the demo that I wanted. And even max do not disturb mode will be sufficient to stop us. It didn't work. It's still not working. That's disappointing. Clicking on, let's try this. I'm trying to test this out, and when I click on links in a pie window inside Kitty inside a Tmux pane, I can see that it is detected as a link, which means that it was marked up as a markdown link, and it has OCS 8 escape sequences. Yet, when I click on it, nothing happens. I was hoping that the commit we just made would fix it, but I'm not sure why it didn't actually fix it, and I'm wondering if you have any insight. Tmux. See, this is what I was saying before, how it's good for spoken English, but maybe not for programming. So it's checking to see whether the file got updated. It was updated. The other funny thing is here is I told you that I like to work in VMs to stop the clanker from breaking things, and I'm not working in a VM right now. The script does log everything, but I think I've got logging turned off. Yeah, there you go. How about this? You can do these things called steering prompts in Pi, which is another thing that I like about it. While it's rambling and thinking, you can give a prompt along the way, and it will, as soon as it is ready to execute the next tool or have the next round trip between the server and itself, it will take into account your steering prompt. So I can say, can we just edit the actions conf to export the environment variable, and that way we'll see the log if we try again. Mouse event capture inside Pi. I don't think that's it. So anyway, what I wanted to do was demo that this works, and then demo something even more mind-blowing, which is that it will also work in the VM. Let's see if it works. Maybe it works in the VM and I broke it in the non-VM case. So what files changed in the last commit? And the reason I use spoken language is because it's way faster than typing. What file changed in the last commit? So it's simplifying the file list, blah, blah, blah. Dependency JSON changed. Stop moving. Okay, so it works in the VM. That's interesting. This is good though for the purposes of the demo. So all I have to unbreak is the machine case. The other thing I should note is that I just tested this in a VM and it still works in a VM. So either that means the VM has an older version of the scripts and those scripts don't have a bug in them that enables them to work, or there's something specific about the code path that is used in the VM case that works and avoids a bug that's happening in the non-VM case. So anyway, while it's thinking about that, I'm going to go back here. What I was just demonstrating is that I can click on these things and they open in Vim. So it's a nice way to have, even though the agent is running in a completely separate process, it's not running inside Vim's terminal window, it's running inside Tmux. But it can easily influence what NVim is doing. We can also go the other way. So if I go here and say, what does this while loop do? That gets sent over because I've got a plugin running on the NVim side that knows how to find a nearby agent in another Tmux split. There's a skill on the agent side that knows how to do things on the Neovim side. So one thing it knows how to do is render links to file URLs as markdown links and wrap them in OCS 8 escape sequences so that the Kitty knows to draw them as links. But it can also do things like add virtual text. I want to, here we go. Let me say something. I want to prove that virtual text is working from the agent to the Neovim instance. So use your Neovim skill to add one line of virtual text to the current buffer in Neovim. So you could, I mean, once again, this is a totally contrived use case, but you can imagine cases where it would be handy for the agent to not only give you a link to a file and a line number in that file, but to be able to write something in the buffer. And so you can see it just added here, hello from the agent, virtual text is working. It is virtual text because it's not in the buffer. Notice there's no line number on that line. So if I save the buffer, like that line doesn't get written to disk. I could tell Pi to remove it, or I can just hit a binding on the Vim side and remove it. So we effectively have bidirectional communication between Neovim and the agent, even when I'm running in the sandbox. We have notifications, which I can't demo because the reasons I discussed before, because I'm sharing my screen, it won't actually show the notification, even though I'm not in Do Not Disturb mode. We have the ability to get text out of the VM into the clipboard. And importantly, we have the ability to get stuff out of the VM in the form of commits into the host machine by pulling them out and reviewing them and signing them. So let's go back to the host machine and see whether it figured out what is going on. It says, tried 2 clicks in Pi and Mac, a window where Pi is running locally in TMX. Then tell me, I'll read the log and we'll know. Okay, so I'm going to try clicking on, what? This is not, yeah. Look at the argv. Okay, that was working. Give me a link to click on, like this guy. I clicked. Okay. I didn't do shift click, I did command click. But let's do plain click and shift click. I did 4 clicks. The first 2 clicks were while holding the command key. Then I did a plain left click, and finally I did a shift left click. But I am interested in diffing the version of these scripts that I've got in the VM, where it works, from the version that I've got locally in my .dot files. A bash version mismatch. All 3 file checks show the same error about declare A being invalid. Okay, yep, that's it. That's the answer. So if we look at our Shannon repo here, restructure for readability, it's the last commit. It's this mofo. Because the version of bash is going to be not new enough on macOS 10. It's 3.2.57 here, and here it's going to be like, actually, 5.2.21. So thank you, Apple, for running an ancient version of bash. The fix is one command. I don't want to fuck. I have the full picture now, says the agent. Okay. I would rather not add another dependency. Although I'm tempted to add a newer version of bash. I am tempted to add another version of bash. Let's add another version of bash. And because it's running user bin env bash, it'll pick up the new one. Okay. Okay. I got a new way to manage bash, by the way, so let's use that. Common TS. There we go. No, I didn't want actually that. I want common JSON. Taps formulae. Let's find bash. Bash should go here. The whole reason I ran this was because I wanted to get the description. Okay. Start bash step. So I could have just installed this, but I want it to be installed on all of my machines, so I changed my .files configuration to do it. Did that? Oh, because it has to be work? Why work? Because I had the wrong fuck. You fucking kidding me? I said common JSON bash. Oh, I know. I have to brew bundle dump. That did what I need. So let's do that again. Install. Why are there two of them? Because I've got it on one of my machines, but not the other. Probably work. And it's encrypted. Okay, I'm going to open this and then I'm going to edit. I'm going to use Screen Magic to hide what's in this file. Bash. Let's look at what happened. So we've got our logging, which I will remove, of course. The common thing, which means it runs on personal and work machines, now installs bash. And the work one doesn't have it anymore, but you can't tell because the diff is encrypted. Okay, so now let's do that again. Bash. Let's do it correctly. So the reason why I'm doing start is so that it doesn't install all the things. Even though it's idempotent, I'd rather just jump to the one I actually care about. And the reason I'm doing step is so that once it's done it, I can stop because I don't want to continue running after that. Okay, that was good. Now we have bash. I'm going to rehash and I'm going to go which a bash. And I'm even going to go env bash version. And it's using the new one now. So I want to retest this. So what I need you to do is give me some more file names. Why don't you show me the file names that were changed in the last 3 commits? Thank you. Okay, so that'll work now. That sucks. I mean, I'm not super happy with that. But let's go here. I don't know, chore. No, it's a refactor really because I'm moving something around. Move the bash formula into the common homebrew manifest. See what I mean? But, yeah, if you really care about where every little thing falls, it's sometimes better not to do it. Mac OS ships with a veritably ancient bash, probably due to Apple hating the GPLv3. So use homebrew to get a modern one. This will fix a breakage in the Shannon plugin, which uses a modern syntax feature. And I've already forgotten what that feature was. Something about declare-a. Not being supported, yeah. It's not even a syntax feature. Which is apparently a v4 plus feature. Okay, we got that. And we got that. And this will now work. Ta-da! So it now works locally and remotely. And we can put that back the way it was. And I've demoed everything I wanted to demo. At least I think I did. Yeah, so I guess, you know, now that I've been talking for like probably 45 minutes or something, although it will hopefully be shorter when I edit it because I'll cut out some of the pathetic flailing about. I think what I want to close the screencast is with just some kind of philosophical ramblings about AI. I know that a lot of us who work as software engineers are grappling with what this might mean for us. The most cynical take is that we won't actually achieve general artificial intelligence, but we'll still lose our jobs because we don't actually need intelligent AI in order for us to be made redundant all we need is for our executives to think that we're not necessary anymore. And there's obviously a lot of pressure from shareholders in the market and capitalism to make that happen. So obviously we hope that doesn't happen. I think a fairly common viewpoint is fear. Another would be excitement, because it is true that you can one-shot things pretty quickly. So for example, even just in this session, like the fact that it was able to find the incompatible syntax as quickly as it did, I probably would have found it eventually. But you could tell from the way I was talking, like the next thing I was going to do, I was going to diff the versions to see if there was a difference in the versions of the source between the VM where it was working and the host machine where it wasn't working. As far as I know, I probably wasn't going to find a difference. And then I would have had to keep looking, and maybe I would have eventually found it. Maybe it would have taken me half an hour or an hour. But the clanker found it in like 3 minutes, which is great. Probably less than 3. You can time it if you want. So clearly, while they sometimes hallucinate and they sometimes pile on the technical debt, and generally they seem to want to add code rather than think about how to integrate their changes into an existing code base, because they're not looking at the whole code base. They're searching it and maybe focusing on specific parts of it, and they tend to make locally optimized solutions that are in service of hitting an immediate goal, and they're not thinking about the long-term consequences of like system architecture and entropy and hygiene and maintainability. And so they're fast, but they can create a lot of technical debt. They're obviously good at debugging. Right now, it is debugging where I think they shine the most, certainly for trivial, like simple things like what we saw in this screencast. Maybe for really difficult issues that require understanding of multiple systems and high quality observability data, they're a little bit more flailing in the dark. And they can obviously use MCP tools to like access different data sources, whether they be like metrics, logs, traces, profiles, etc. That might help them narrow in on where a complex problem is at the heart of a distributed system. But in practice, there are still going to be problems where all they can come up with are hypotheses, and it's going to take a tenacious human to get to the bottom of the problem for real, and certainly probably a human to exercise good judgment about what the solution should be. So they're evolving quickly. They're really good at some things, but speaking personally, there's a lot of talk about moving massively faster because of these things, and whether that be in the form of letting these things run in harnesses overnight and then coming back and finding you've got like $1 billion startup waiting for you to deploy, or whether it be using sub-agents to divide and conquer and do a lot of work really fast. But fundamentally, real products that are good take time to build, and merely shipping something quickly and then iterating on it in a way that leads the product to evolve maintainably over time, like that is much easier said than done. Most of us still work in what I would call brownfield products instead of greenfield ones, so evolving them over time is incredibly difficult. And you don't want to wind up in a situation where you've got like 1,000 layers of duct tape that the clanker has applied, layer after layer. And we humans are really the guardians of quality in this sense, because we're the ones who actually care about maintainability over time. The clanker doesn't have consciousness, so it doesn't actually care about anything. You can tell it what you want it to care about, but because of the fact that it's non-deterministic and it only has so much attention, like you can only give it so many instructions before it starts selectively attending or imperfectly attending to what you told it was important, because you can't tell it 1,000 things are important, because that's almost like saying nothing is important, to quote or to paraphrase the line from the Incredibles movie, or maybe it was in the Incredibles 2, I can't remember. And so there's a lot of pressure in the media, potentially in the area of like investors, executives, to move quickly, and almost to like find a way to engineer our own redundancy, because obviously engineers are in the vanguard trying to figure out what these things can do. And if we actually do get them to the point where they can literally replace us, or even just give the appearance of being able to replace us, like we may have put ourselves in a situation where we've effectively assured our economic demise. Because I don't think the answer lies in using the LLM only as a tool to make you move 10 times faster. Because even if you had like 10 really smart interns, which is what these things could be if they had truly general intelligence, it would be exhausting to keep them productive and on course. And I don't know what kind of neurological makeup a human being would need to literally be able to sustain that, but like that's clearly not realistic, no matter what people might claim. I think part of the problem is capitalism's obsession with growth for the sake of growth, driven by greed, obviously. Because we're barreling towards a future where we'll just have a lot more stuff, and like maybe, build is the new buy, like, because apparently that's cheaper. But I think where that leads you is just to have a lot of crappy stuff. I mean, some of the stuff you buy is crappy too, but I do worry that we wind up in a place where not just open source issue trackers are filled with AI slop, and not just social media feeds are filled with Gen AI, fake garbage, but just that in a kind of much more banal version of like the paperclip optimizer scenario, we just wind up with human beings and agents that delegate to agents overseeing and orchestrating the production of a bunch of worthless crap. And I don't really... that doesn't sound like an enjoyable world to live in. And I don't want to be melodramatic and say, oh, I don't want to live in a world like that. I'm going to take my own life. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I hope that we can maintain, even in the face of all of these forces that are trying to sweep us along with it, I hope that we can maintain focus on the worthwhileness of building and crafting good and useful things. And I would rather have a reduced number of excellent things than an almost unbounded, exponentially growing number of mediocre crap. Because it does feel like the latter is what we're heading towards. And even in what I've demonstrated tonight, like even in my own dot files where I'm showing you how I've been using AI lately, and I've been trying to streamline some of the workflows, like as I think I mentioned, like a lot of this stuff is written in Bash. It is duct tape, right? It's not long-term maintainable, and it kind of hurts my head to read it. And so, to quote Mario Zechner, the guy who made the Pi coding agent, he had a talk that he gave recently called "Slow the Fuck Down." Like, I agree with that. Like, I hope that we collectively, as a society, can pump the brakes just a little bit. As much as I want these tools to keep getting better, and I know they will, and I want to keep exploring their usage as tools, I don't want us to engage in this kind of thoughtless, everything is a hammer kind of syndrome on steroids, where we just organize all of our human effort around this task of seeing how quickly we can make these clankers churn out crap. And so, yeah, I hope we get to a place before we lose our jobs where we can alternate kind of thoughtful, deep human work with calculated usage of these tools that leverage their strengths in service of meaningful goals and not just mindless productivity, building stuff. And yeah, that's the end of the rant. And thank you for watching to this point. If you did, I would expect that probably less than 1% of people who start the video get this far. But thanks anyway. And I will see you again soon, hopefully before we all get flooded with paper clips. All right.